How's it going, everyone? My name is Case, and beside me
is Alex.
And today we are talking about the all-new Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS. It's a long name, but this is a badass bike. It's super fast, and Triumph has done a ton to upgrade it, and we're going to get into all of that with this video. But one of the coolest things is that this bike is a triple, which I know Alex is a huge fan of.
I love triples. I'll get it right out of the way. I own a Yamaha MT-09, which, while it's not really in the same price category as this Speed Triple, I think a lot of people looking at the Speed Triple will also look at the MT-09 and vice versa for one reason, and that's the sound. That's the reason I bought an MT-09. I love the sound of triples, and this new Speed Triple has an all-new sound to it. This is the RS model, which in previous years has always been kind of the top dog Speed Triple. It's the one you want to take on the track with the Olin suspension, the Brembo brakes. And at least for this year, we only have the RS model. So I guess Triumph realized that most people looking at a bike like this want the top dog, highest performing model. And yeah, that's what we got here. This is Triumph's ground up street naked bike. It's their naked street bike, naked sport bike. Unlike other manufacturers, they don't take a popular fully fared model and remove all the plastics and call it a naked upright. This was built from the ground up to be an upright street bike. So yeah, it should be a pretty good package, but let's get into what makes this new one so special.
Yeah, we have to dig right into numbers here, starting with the engine, because there have been massive changes. So the previous generation Speed Triple S and RS had a 1050cc inline 3-cylinder. This new engine is 1160 cc's, so it's 110 cc's greater displacement. And to go along with that, power has increased as well. Before, 148 horsepower, 86 pound-feet of torque. That's not a bad number, but now 177 horsepower, 92 pound-feet of torque. So that's 29 extra horsepower and 5 more pound-feet of torque. And they've also made other upgrades to the internals of the engine, which have made the casing itself lighter and more compact. The engine is more responsive because there's 12% less inertia in the powertrain, so that should mean that it's a lot snappier. They've even made the clutch lighter, the transmission smoother, so there's some huge changes here.
Yeah, 177 horsepower. Like you said, that's 29 horsepower over last year's model, but the bike's also 22 pounds lighter this year, so 436.5 pounds wet and ready to go out on the road. And you and I actually had the chance to go see this bike in person today. We were walking all around it, and it does look like the engine is pretty compact. It's not sticking out from the bike. This does seem to be a pretty small and compact bike for 1160 or a 1200. It just looks really compact, and it looks like it could be a street triple rather than a full-on speed triple.
Which is also an advantage of a 3-cylinder engine as opposed to an inline 4, which naturally is usually going to be wider. So it's a pretty compact bike. It's lightweight, it's got a lot of power, and because it's got so much power and it weighs so little, and you're going to get going fast on it one way or another, it has twin 320 millimeter floating discs, Brembo Stelema monoblock calipers, and all kinds of technology to make sure that this motorcycle keeps traction, cornering, traction control, wheel lift control. Tell us a little bit about some of this crazy riding tech.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech in this bike. One of the great features is, like you said, lean controlled ABS. So it's going to use that IMU, detect the lean angle, and make sure that you stay upright and stay safe in the corners. Big honkin' Brembo brakes on this thing. It's always cool to see on a bike that can take off this fast. Go along with the cornering ABS, we also have cornering traction control, front wheel lift control, up and down quick shifter, and 5 different riding modes. So you do get the full-on track riding mode, and there is an all-new 5-inch TFT display up front. The outgoing model also had a 5-inch TFT color display. This new one just looks a little more refined, a little more modern, but you get a nice cool lap timer on there, and like I said, you get the track mode, which in previous years you only got on the RS, but we only have the RS this year, so you get all 5 riding modes right out of the box. There's also a new system called My Triumph Connectivity. It's brand new for the Speed Twin. It's been on some other Triumph products in the past though, and that allows you to interact with your navigation, GoPro, phone, and music right directly in that center screen using your handlebar controls.
Yeah, a lot of that technology is really cool, and actually this motorcycle is so new that even though we got to walk around it, they're not allowed to flip it on or anything, so we couldn't really interact with the tech itself. But even just looking at the screen, they've upgraded it to make sure that it's more visible during the daytime, and if you look at it at a certain angle like you're seeing right now, you can see this almost kind of purple film over it. So all of this technology has been refined. A lot of the things that we're looking at here did exist on prior models, like the cornering ABS, cornering traction control, but all these systems have been upgraded in this new model. And something that I think is especially cool is the fact that you can control your GoPro.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, with the interface. That's pretty cool, especially for us camera guys.
Yeah, there's a ton of times too, and I've been on rides and you're like checking in your side view mirror to make sure your GoPro's rolling because you're coming up on a good stretch of road, and that's really unsafe. So kudos to Triumph for allowing you to start your GoPro right from the TFT display. That's pretty cool. Let's talk a little bit about the design because let's be honest, it's not a crazy redesign of the bike. It's definitely smaller changes, but they did do a few things. So you have kind of a skinnier headlight, still that bug eye look up front, but a little more closer to what the Street Triple looks like. So they're just a little more skinny, less round and in your face than the outgoing Speed Triple. You also have a new wheel design, more spokes on the new wheels. New exhaust placement, it's been lowered down on the bike a little bit so it doesn't sit quite as high up near the seat. The belly pan has been reshaped, the frame has been redesigned, the tank has been reshaped as well. Same thing with the tail. You also get new signatures in the LED headlights and taillights. So all in all, a pretty similar looking bike, but definitely enough changes there to make you notice that it's the new generation, especially when you look at the engine. You can really tell that this is a new bike when you look at the engine cases side by side.
Like on the previous model, the new Speed Triple has fully adjustable Öhlins suspension front and rear, and that means preload, rebound, and compression, both front and back, which is cool. That gives you a ton of adjustability.
Yeah, lots of adjustability, and this is the kind of bike that I would love to take on the track, but it's the kind of bike you're not going to ride there every day. So this is definitely a street bike with the high performing suspension to be able to take you on the track a couple times a year. So really cool to see that. Triumph has also changed up the riding position slightly when you compare this new Speed Triple to the outgoing models. So the seat height just slightly higher, 32.7 inches on this new bike. The old seat height was 32.48 inches. So very minor change there. They did increase the rake by 1 degree and the trail by 1/2 inch. So front steering geometry is just a little bit different. Wheelbase is pretty much identical to the outgoing model, but you have a new lightweight chassis, some changes to the frame, and all that should make for a riding position that's just a little more dominant than the outgoing model.
Before we go any further, we want to take a quick look at our sponsor for today's episode, Rider Justice.
Hey everyone, this is Case from TFL Bike with our Ride Smarter Tip of the Month, brought to you by Rider Justice. We hope you never get into an accident on your bike, but if you do yourself a favor and stay off social media until your claim is settled and you're back to full health. This is even more important if the accident wasn't your fault. Why? Well, you can be sure the insurance company will scour your social media feeds looking for any evidence they can use to lessen your settlement amount, or worse, not pay you at all. One innocent post from you claiming, "I felt great and I took a walk today," could cost you thousands of dollars. To learn more about how to ride smarter with common sense tips anyone can follow, go to riderjustice.com, the champions of biker rights, on the road, in the courtroom, and now across the country.
At this point, you probably think you've heard all of the tech that's on the new Speed Triple 1200 RS, but you haven't, because there is also up and down quick shifting. There is keyless go, so basically you don't have to actually use a blade style key, not only for the ignition, but the keyless works with the fuel filler cap and the steering lock. This motorcycle is not going to be cheap. The base price starts at $18,300, and they should be available by the end of March this year as a 2022 model. So
Yeah, it's a pricey bike. I mean, the outgoing model was $16,500, and that was for the Top Dog RS. So almost $2,000 price increase. Pretty steep. You're getting up into, Tuono factory pricing. This bike has a lot of competition. MT10, Monster 1200, Super Duke. There's a ton of them out there, but at this pricing, you're really kind of at the top of the food chain. Like I said, comparing with the Tuono factory, the higher end Monster 1200S. So yeah, it's definitely not a cheap bike, but it is good to see that they're adding power to the bike and making changes. The Speed Triple was always kind of in the premium section of the naked sport bikes, but was always kind of on the low end in terms of power, and that made sense for the price. But now that this is getting up into the higher price range, competing with the more expensive nakeds, it is good to see that we're getting that power increase too to go along with it.
It's got more to offer than purely what you see in terms of the spec sheet here that we've been talking about. Actually getting hands-on with the bike, it's impressive the way that it's built.
Yeah, and we were there, we were up close and personal, we got our hands on it, we couldn't turn the key, but from what we were able to touch and play around with, it's definitely well put together. You have that classic Triumph fit and finish, and we actually also saw the new Trident 660, which is also a 3-cylinder motorcycle, but much lower displacement than this. More of an entry-level bike, but that bike blew the two of us away too. The fit and finish on that was pretty spectacular. If you're interested in hearing all the details on that new Trident 660, we did make a video on it here on TFL Bike. You can go check that out. But yeah, exciting stuff coming down the pipeline from Triumph. Should be a really good year in terms of Triumph motorcycles.
Anyways, that's all for this video. Be sure to go back to tflbike.com where we have news posting almost every day, and we'll catch you in the next one.